We are talking about Amouage, and why? Because it's been a while. They had their chance to present us with their new artistic direction, British/Arabic style of blending. The Amouage fragrances that are marketed toward men are a little bit more accessible and a little bit more interesting than the Amouage fragrances that are marketed toward women. I'm just gonna call this video the best of Amouage ranked. Here we go.
Here we go. If you haven't seen my video about the ranking of all Amouages for men, which I have in my personal collection, you should watch it. I don't really separate them in my mind for Amouages for men and women. These are just fragrances, and both are equally can be equally applied to any skin, of any gender, of any socioeconomic status or ethnicity, you name it. These are just scents. However, I'm separating the two just for the convenience of how people search for fragrance reviews. So I heavily implore you, watch the first part before you watch this one, because I'm going to be referencing some of the things and I'm going to be potentially making some comparisons. But here we're going to talk and rank 7 Amouage fragrances that are marketed toward women that I have in my collection, from the least favorite to the absolute favorite. Let's get cracking. My nose is gonna be so dead after this, you have no idea. Amouage fragrances, they kill your receptors like no other. The powerhouse, absolute powerhouse of perfumes. Okay, Amouage Dia is my least favorite out of the 7 that I'm gonna show you today. Let's refresh my memory and talk about it more. Oh. I knew it, but every time it comes as a surprise. Basically, the 60s, the 50s in a bottle. This is the golden era of aldehydes, those oily, like I cannot fathom that once upon a lifetime these were called clean and youthful. Think of Chanel No. 5, Arpège by Lanvin. Oh, there's so many of them. All of those heavily aldehydic, like super saturated, old school, older types of aldehydes. Older not in the sense that they are they have to age. It's just a different type of molecules. That aldehydes is a whole big family. They have very different flavors. So these are the ones that kind of like put the aldehydes on the map. So Amouage Dia was intentionally made as a aldehydic rose shipper. It is an homage to that very era of fragrances. It's unapologetic, it's very loud, and if you're iffy about some of the older classics that's been reformulated and kind of lost their bite a little bit, Amouage Dia is the safe harbor where you can go and get the full effect. You can indulge in the old school vintage style French perfumery. I think the number 5 actually has been softened quite substantially over the years to fit with the market demands, and some people might even say that modern Chanel No. 5 Extrait de Perfume is softer and creamier and more wearable than this. However, as I said, Amouage Dia unapologetically screams at you that that's what aldehydes used to be all about. It's not the watered down, softened, peachy, like fruited versions of the contemporary remakes. This is it. This is what it used to be. That's like the true heavy, like the special night out in the opera type of perfume. I, honest to God, can't not only wear it, I can barely tolerate it because it's not my cup of tea. I'm not really a fan. but I can definitely appreciate the solidarity and kind of unwavering statement of support that this fragrance represents in the modern world, because there are fewer and fewer of those kind of fragrances in between. At the same time, the formulas are known, they're saved, the big five, the big production companies that make fragrances for all designer markets, for all designers, they can make them if there is a new demand. It's just right now, there's no indication that we will ever go to that era. But if you're one of the few people, it's a very niche kind of thing, and if you're one of the few people who cherishes the old school French style of blending perfumery, like pre-war and post-war, that kind of era, Amouage Dia. And I would, if you're that person, I would run and find older formulation of Dia, because it seems that the future of Amouage is not in the perfumes like that. They are reformulating, lightening, softening, kind of polishing their perfumes more and more toward sort of the lower common denominator, like trying to please more people who are less into Arabic or old school French perfumery. So, for those of you who are big fans of old school French perfumery, Amouage Dia is where it's at, one of the last fragrances where it's at, and it will very soon, likely become different and reformulated. For me, however, I appreciate it, I tried it, not for me. Number 7. Number 6, another powerhouse. This one is, I dare say, is the loudest of them all today. It's a bit dangerous, but I'll spray it. Amouage Bracken. This is like a chemical attack. This is as fougere as it gets. If you don't know what fougere represents, this is it. I have the original, not the original, but I have Houbigant Fougere Royale that literally created the family of these fragrances, and it's called Fougere Royale. Obviously been reformulated a few times, but I got a bottle because I really wanted to know like what started a whole chapter in olfactory design. This one, I think, is probably closes it in a way. How do I describe this? There's a little bit of a vetiver oiliness that to me smells nutty. I find that Bracken kind of transcends, it moves between oily, nutty, and honey-like for me, but in a very, very kind of like sudden fashion. It's not a honey-based perfume, by no means, but there is something there that makes me think of what is the sweet part of it, and to me it's kind of like nutty and honey-like vetiver. But otherwise, this is a very dense, loud, opaque green scent. It's green with the heaviest green accords you can think of. Let's see what it has. It has fern, wild berries, like all of those. Some people say they smell the tomato vine. All of those kind of like meaty, oily, branchy type of greens. Chamomile, leather, narcissus, lily, vetiver, birch, patchouli. It's a fresh, spicy, aromatic by its classification. I mean, yes, it's fresh in a way that it's not super sweet or not super dark or resinous or spicy. No, it does live in the medium spectrum of frequencies, but I wouldn't call it fresh, okay? It's just so dense. It's the brightest, most primary green that I can envision in a fragrance. It is loud. I mean, I have to keep it at the distance because it just kills my receptors. It's so potent. It's so unique. Once you smell Bracken, you'll always recognize it again. It's just something that is not possible to forget. Another tip: if your state or your community is not very diligent at social distancing, Amouage Bracken for women, that will do the trick. You'll be the only one in that store. In that line, you will be the only one. Nobody will dare to stand by you closer than 6 feet. It's just something else. But it's not for me. I'm just saying, I appreciate the complexity, the loudness, the power of this perfume, but I can't fathom how to wear it. Maybe, like spray in the air and kind of just like lean in for a second. That's probably how I would wear it. I can't even fathom wearing one spray, to be completely honest. Okay, let's try to move on. The number five. This was a interesting and conflicted choice with the number 4. The number 5 is Interlude, Amouage Interlude Woman. It makes me think of dried fruits. Almost one of those Eastern markets where they sell like just rows and rows of various dried fruits, kind of all of it together. It has an opening: marigold, ginger, grapefruit. I don't really smell any opening, to be honest. It's straight to the base for my nose. Again, it's a endless sheet of ingredients, a whole periodic table of olfactory ingredients. Walnut, kiwi, honey, apopanax, coffee, sandalwood, rose, orange blossom, jasmine, leather, benzoin, oud, sandalwood, tonka bean, amber, oak moss, vanilla, musk. Crazy. At first I didn't want to read the notes, but then I thought you'll probably guys will still ask me to. But once you read them, you realize how useless that is. It's just everything. Yeah, everything in there. However, how does it smell? So to me, if I'm trying to be more specific than dried fruits with kind of like darker, leathery, benzoin, resinous, tonka bean sweetness, I would go that when I really try to find a few notes in here, like the ones that are mentioned in the marketing campaign, I find that this is like a honeyed kiwi. And that's why I think of dried fruits, because dried fruits are often super sweet and yet a little bit sour. That's the impression I get. This is kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of cool. But it's a bit too sweet to my liking. There's so much of these jammy, apricot-y, I wouldn't say syrupy, but like candied fruits. There's so much of this kind of sweetness. There's so much jam. It's kind of like with the Connie, it almost goes to caramel, which is I don't really like caramel type of scents. It's just like too much. It's 5 desserts compressed into one. And even though I appreciate the kind of the fun and a little bit odd combination of honey with kiwi that I get sort of in the middle of it, if I really try to like put my mind to work and find certain notes, honeyed kiwi, it's kind of fun. But at the same time, not really. It kind of all blends together. And it's it's for those who love sweets. If you are like a gourmand lover to the ends of your fingertips, if half of your collections are desserts over desserts, sweets over sweets, and it's like more, just bring me more, just top it with whipped cream. The Interlude Woman, I think that's where it's at. It's all there. It's all there with a characteristic Arabic kind of resinous heaviness and a bit of a kind of status posture that this fragrance has. It's kind of cool. It's just, I don't think I would enjoy wearing something that rich and that sweet. This is why the number 4, by a small margin, was won by Amouage Epic. Not gonna lie, I almost bought it like a month ago. Almost bought it because I fell in love with the bottle. This is like where I'm get really weak. The dark jewel tone glass, and there it's beautiful emerald green with gold. This is it for me. I melt. This is the kind of hard luxury that I just melt for. The cobalt blue, the ruby red, the emerald green with gold. Ah. So, Amouage Epic for women. I thought this would be white florals that are like decorated by woody notes, but this is rather woods decorated with a few white florals. It's incensey, it's very piney, it gives you a lot of this kind of dry pine needles impression, and it to me pretty much stays the same. They are like cinnamon, pink, oleander, rose, tea, geranium, jasmine. So all of these beautiful, sweeter type of florals, they do peek through. But I think this one will really heavily depend on how it sits on your skin. Some skin pulls more of a sweet notes out of every fragrance, and certain skin types kind of pull more of a dry, spicy, woody, or even bitter notes. My skin seems to be the latter type, and for me it's just pine needles, pine needles, pine needles. Oh, there is a rose there somewhere. I want to love it, but the balance is shifted away from what I'm really looking for, a little too much for me in the Epic. But not gonna lie, I'm just trying to be honest, if I saw it for a very reasonable price secondhand or in a reputable discount store, just the bottle alone, ooh, I think I would try to make it work. But what I will do, I will definitely wear my very generous decant. I actually got mine from Perfume.com. It's cool that you can get it there. And if I miss it after I'm done with this, and this will last me years, then we'll talk. I'll try to talk myself out of the stupid purchase habits that I used to have. The number 3. This came as a surprise. I honestly thought the Epic, since I lusted after it for so long, that would make the top 3, but it didn't. The confident number 3 is Sunshine Amouage for women. Basically a crowd favorite. One of the best sellers. And one of the fragrances that kind of brings people into the Amouage world. It is a super sweet, jammy, ambery type of apricot. It's like apricot jam at its best. There are more things there, more facets, such as supposedly it even has almond and blackcurrant at the beginning, artemisia, osmanthus, vanilla. Let me read you the whole thing. Magnolia, jasmine, white tobacco, papyrus, juniper, patchouli. I don't know. The Amouage pyramids are not very helpful, at least for me, for some reason. For me, it is super sweet, high quality, deep, luscious apricot / peach jam. It then melts, soothes away, loses the fruity side of it into a rather pleasant amber, a fruity amber accord. To me, that's about it. This is why it's number 3, because I find it to be super easy and delightful to wear. Something like that you could expect from Tom Ford or Kilian. So in that way, this is one of the most American market friendly Amouage. This is something that if you like Tom Ford Gourmands, if you like Kilian Gourmands, you will find yourself at ease and wearing Sunshine with pleasure. It's almost sunny in how happy and easygoing it is. yet still keeping the complexity and the density that's, a reputable Arabic fragrance should have. So, a crowd favorite, easy to wear, pleasant, but it didn't steal my heart. I have ambers in my collection that I prefer to this. So, number 3, Amouage Sunshine. Number 2, this was the biggest surprise. I knew my number 1, to be honest, even before I sampled this. I thought like the number 1 will be hard to beat. But the number 2 is very unusual fragrance. Here, like, I guess trigger warning, not for everyone. Not for everyone, and I'm shocked that for me it ended up at the number 2. Second best, Beach Hot for women. The amount of filth that's been poured over the Beach Hot for Women by Amouage over the years in the comments cannot be underestimated. Or I guess overestimated. Sorry. I had such a great point before I misspoke. Basically, one of the least favorites from the line marketed toward women. A lot of people say, what is this? And yet, listen here, this is the trend of 2021. You heard here first. This is salty oceanic woods. Reminds you of something? Oh yeah, about like 10, if not several dozen of niche and mainstream designer fragrances that are being pumping into the market in 2020 and 2021. Tom Ford, anyone? Costa Azur? Beach Hot Woman was there first, and actually maybe a few other niche fragrances that I haven't even heard of. It's basically a very new way to look at woody and look at ozonic and oceanic. We're so used to thinking of oceanic, ozonic fragrances as something from the 90s, right? Calvin Klein's, bergamoty, citrusy, kind of like these almost bitter, clean, like a screeching glass type of fragrances. All the rage, the new oceanic woods. The Beach Hot Woman is about the perfect way to start with it. I got mine from Scentbird, by the way, not sponsored, but if you want to, you can find it online. And again, luckily, this was such a misunderstood fragrance for so long that you might find it for very, very good discount online. Again, if you're into it, I would start searching now because I profess it's gonna be the shit this year. Again, considering how many new niche designer releases have been dabbing into salty, woody fragrances, I feel that's the rage. Anyway, so how does it really work? I will talk about the Beach Hot as an example, but this is basic, it generalizes to the trend overall. So we take an older idea of oceanic fragrances, so they're what? Slightly salty, slightly kind of like this mineral feel to them, and then you add a little bit of these greener, I don't want to say rotting, but algae or seaweed type of notes. And that really adds a lot of depth and kind of swirl to the way that the scent kind of goes through your nose and the way that it lives. Then we start pairing it and we kind of concentrate the salt, the seaweedness, kind of the algae, the greener watery notes, maybe in a way like almost like water lily, but not as clean, not as magnolia, pristine and sharp. Something that is almost sweet in a way that it is organically green. And then you add dry and sometimes spicy, sometimes very flat and clean type of woody accord on top of that. There's a lot of ways how you can piece it all together, and I find that Beach Hot by Amouage, it's one of the softest, yet, I mean, if soft even applies and for Amouage, the roundest, again, delicate is not the right word, smooth blends of that represent that concept. I just want to outline for you like the bounds of what this is about as this specific fragrance as a representation of one of the hottest trends in the niche perfumery. I guess that's another good idea for a video. What do you think about like the 2021 trends in perfumery? At least my forecast. That would be, if you're interested, please leave a comment below. This is not the easiest trend to wear. This is not the easiest type of fragrance to wear. Let me tell you up front, it takes certain curiosity from a wearer. That's not a rose musk kind of thing, you know? So that's why I call it niche. However, given that Tom Ford just in 2021 released something that on paper sounds very similar, it is entirely possible that we are migrating away as a fragrance community, as people who wear fragrances, who understand fragrances, who love fragrances, who collect fragrances, in those who only have one or two. Something trendy, something fun. That collectively we are potentially migrating toward more introverted fragrances in the way that they are not meant to please others, they are meant to entertain us. That's definitely the case. I don't know if people will like it or not, honestly. I just know that this is something captivating. Either I'm losing my mind, which is entirely possible, or this is really cool. I love it. I love it. It's number 2. That's all I can say. The number 1 is probably the most wearable option out of all of Amouage if you're afraid of Arabic style of blending. And this was my first love from Amouage and my only full-size bottle in their range for women. Amouage Ciel. I used up a whole decant like this, and this is my second one, and I also have a full-size bottle. Basically, this is what I call an evil mermaid fragrance. It is also aquatic, but here we get less of that green slash at the same time sweet oceanic salty part and leave it more on the thinner kind of semi-transparent goldeny green transparent turquoise waters with water lily. It has much lighter feel to it. It still gives a bit of a swampy, salty kind of feel, especially at the beginning, and it's also a little bit sharp. It's like these little mermaids with sharp teeth, you know, not the ones that the Disney type of mermaids. Oh no, those are the OG, the Andersons, the folk tales type of mermaids that would lure and kill all the passing boat, like people on the boats. At the same time, at the heart, it's such a beautiful floral. So basically, the only sharp and a little bit odd part of it that's a little bit swampy, water lily-like, and lotus-like is the beginning. But then it kind of just like opens, and there's such creamy, thinly weaved warmth in it. It's very romantic at its heart. I love it. It's actually 2003 creation by Lucas Cizok. It opens with cyclamen, gardenia, violet leaf. At the heart has water lily, jasmine, peach blossom, and rose. Makes perfect sense to me now. Base, musk, sandalwood, incense, cedar, amber. I don't feel much incense. I would say this is like amber sandalwood with a little bit of skin musk. I'll leave it at that. I don't really even feel much of a base there. To me, this is a fragrance that is very light. It kind of leaves in the higher frequency spectrum of different scents. I love it. Needless to say, number 1 for me. Already used up a full decant. Have 2 more. 2 more to go. Adore it. If you are afraid, as I said, of powerhouse type of perfumes, or you like them theoretically like I do, like you like them but you just can't quite wear them, they are smothering, they're too much, this will be perfect. This is just incredible type of scent. In a way, it's the least typical for Amouage, but it's my most favorite. And I'm proud to say that Beach Hut, which is my second best, is quite typical of Amouage. It's very loud, it's very out there, and yet it has depth and complexity. Talking of future directions. Okay, all right. Let's gather here while nobody else is listening. Ever since the Amouage changed its artistic directors, the world split in two. Those who loathe the change and those who cautiously anticipate what it will bring. On one hand, I can't say I'll miss the inconsistent quality of the make. I rather would know what to expect from my bottle with a perfume name rather than guess, did I get the good one or the bad one, and yada 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 yada. So I do hope that the Procter & Gamble production, like large-scale production experience of their new director, will be put to a good use in terms of the quality assurance. That I'm excited for. This is the bitter part. This is the part where people just split based on their taste and affinities. It seems the case that all of the new releases by Amouage are targeted toward kind of like a designer market. They become smoother, softer, they don't have much of a bite, they are not as voluminous, not as bright. And for that, it seems like Amouage is, I guess, quote unquote, betraying its roots. On the other hand, and I can see that. I'm also like a bit of I wouldn't call myself a history buff, no, but I'm mostly like a lover. Like, you give me something historic with genealogy and pedigree, and I melt. But in practice, I can't wear Amouage fragrances with notable exceptions. So, as much as I feel like I should lament that potentially such powerhouses as Dia, Bracken, Imitation, Interlude, that they might lose their cult followed brightness and loudness, I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing the craft and the conceptual complexity that Amouage is famous for, with a little bit more of a, again, predictable quality of the make and somewhat friendlier silage. Especially in the 2021, the second year that seems a lot of us will be restructuring our lives, working from home or looking for work. I think it's important to be considerate of others and of our own balance. The Amouage scents work beautifully in cold weather and especially outside. When we spend a lot of time in enclosed spaces by ourselves or with a few people, wearing scents like that becomes a bit of a curse, to be honest. So I hope, I guess I find myself hopeful. I find myself hopeful that you don't have to shock the senses in order to prove your heritage or uphold a certain standard. I think with the right balance of design opulence, conceptual complexity, obviously delicate marketing execution, and that will be hard, the balanced scent, Amouage can still maintain its reputation of a hard luxury, royal Eastern, Middle Eastern opulence type of brand, while it being more inviting towards new circumstances of our life and toward people who didn't grow up in Middle East. But I can totally understand the nostalgia and the sadness that it brings to a lot of people who do have those memories and who were excited to find a kind of mainstream at this point, mainstream niche brand, such Amouage is, that brought the cultural traditions of Middle East to the mainstream market. We'll see. I wonder, like, what side of the debate are you guys on? How do you feel about it? What do you think of the new releases? Do you have any old ones? Are you trying to stock up? Have you even heard of Amouage before? Tell me everything. I'll be waiting for your comments. Please like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you in the new video.